Welcome to Comic and Screen. I'm Sam Otten, and with me is Jason Book, and in this video we're going to be covering Action Comics number 962. This is the sixth and kind of the conclusion issue to the Path of Doom story arc, which is the first story arc in the Rebirth era of Action Comics. It's written by Dan Jurgens, pencils by Steven Segovia, and the colors by Ulysses Areola. And so this is the conclusion of the arc. Real quick, we have Lex Luthor, who was in the Justice League before Rebirth. He's got now the new 52 Superman's cape, and Lex Luthor is kind of trying to take on the mantle of Superman for the city of Metropolis, and Luthor has been very protective of Metropolis. So Luthor is still a good guy here. He's been a good guy now for actually a couple years in the comic books. But the Superman that's on the scene is the pre-Flashpoint Superman, the Superman from before the New 52 who's back. He's married to Lois. He has a child, Jonathan. And this Superman does not trust Lex Luthor at all, because the Lex Luthor from his universe was just a villain through and through. So they've had these dynamics between the two of them. There's a Clark Kent around. We don't really know anything about who that Clark Kent is, but it looks like the next arc we're going to get that explained. Doomsday has been dropped in, and so this arc has largely been the battle between Superman and Doomsday. And this is the Superman who was killed by Doomsday. It's the same Superman. He remembers getting killed. Lois Lane, his wife, is very afraid because she knows that he's been killed by Doomsday. So there's been a lot of drama as this fight's been going on, and Wonder Woman's been helping out. And then there's this Mr. Oz character who's been watching Superman since like Jeff Johns took over on the Superman book. This Mr. Oz has just been watching and kind of testing and trying to see what Superman's about, and now he's testing out this new Superman. So that brings us up to this one. They have the big fight. The fight turns out this way. What was your reaction, Jason, when you saw this issue and you saw kind of where the fight with Doomsday ended up?
Well, I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, to start, I really like the cover. I've been on a bit of a Superman kind of tear of comics and movies and stuff lately, so I was really wanting something new Superman to read this week, and I haven't been following the whole arc. So I jumped in, and parts of it I liked, parts of it I didn't like. I did like certain of the ways the fight scenes were rendered, and there's some cool ideas there with how Doomsday was dispatched. But part of me was like, well, some of this we've seen before. I thought maybe Doomsday, it's a little early in a new Superman title to bring him back already. But I see that they're doing different things. I like that they didn't completely get rid of him. But yeah, I do like this character, the way they write this Superman, and like to see more with him. And it was missing the red boots that I think were colored accidentally in that book we were talking about last time. And
Yeah.
I'd like to see those red boots again. But other than that, it was an enjoyable read, though.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good conclusion to the fight. What are Doomsday's so powerful, how do you really write the ending of that fight? And I thought that they did it in a pretty smart way. Works out pretty well. I thought it was good to have Wonder Woman coming in there to help, because she had kind of been wanting to help all along, so that was kind of a nice, setup and then conclusion. But yeah, to me, it was an interesting to see echoes of the death of Superman and the his fight back in the early '90s with Doomsday. But it has these different layers to it now because Lois Lane, his wife, is really watching it differently because she knew how it turned out last time. Right. And you also have the new dynamic of Jonathan Kent, the son, or Jonathan White, I guess, the son, cheering on his dad. And you think your dad can beat anybody, right? Like my dad can beat up your dad. So he, of course, thinks my dad can do this, but Lois is worried because she knows it's actually a pretty risky fight.
Right, yeah. So, and I did like the way it was rendered and things like that, and it definitely had some different aspects in the original comic did. Obviously, I didn't read the entire arc, so I'm sure there's bits and pieces that I would have liked. But yeah, I'd like to see what they do next. And this is obviously the same Superman character that's in the Superman book proper as well, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
and then there's dealing with Eradicator, so they're kind of bringing back some Death of Superman or Reign of the Superman characters, and they're doing them in this rebirth kind of reinterpretation.
Right, and it is Dan Jurgens on both books, or just this one?
The other one's Tomasi.
Right.
This one's Jurgens here, yeah. But no, I think the books work well together. You mentioned the fight and how it was rendered here. I really liked the fight choreography, and a lot of the pages I could really tell physically like how they were maneuvering, where they were throwing their weight. Right. And then like Doomsday would have a counter move, and I'm like, wow, that was like a logical counter move. It was well choreographed. So I like it when they put the thought in to designing the fight sequence. They don't just kind of draw stuff that looks cool. They're like, no, it has actually fluid motion from the panels, and you could feel the shift of the weight and what would make sense as a counter move. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and putting him in the Phantom Zone too is a cool story idea because it allows for other elements to come out, and definitely nice to see kind of an old Silver Age thing back again, like the Phantom Zone, which is part of the Superman mythos, and is always nice to see.
Yeah, and it's also good to see a classic kind of Superman style fight where it's, like taking him very large distances and coming up with a plan. So, it's a lot of the punching, but it's also Superman's trying to think of what's my end game, like what's my actual plan to win this fight. And that's the kind of thing that's a Superman fight that separates it from other superheroes, having fights. Like Flash fights are very different than that, or Batman fights are very different. In Superman, it's nice to see him going all out, throwing Doomsday a great distance, or pushing him to a certain spot, trying to strategically get him where you want him to be.
Exactly, yeah. And that, I was also thinking during the issue too that there was not tons of dialogue with Superman, but it was written like there's that difference between this version of Superman and the one from the New 52, and this is the Superman we kind of grew up reading, so it's cool to see him back in the comics as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's been nice for a lot of people. I like the New 52 Superman, but it's also nice after 5 years to get this Superman back. It's good. And I also appreciate this issue for wrapping up the Doomsday deal, but still leading us forward to the next stuff. So I'm really curious about this Mr. Oz, ever since we saw him back in like Superman issue 32 or something way back there with Jeff Johns.
Oh, really? From back there? Wow, jeez.
I can't remember the exact number, but it's something way back there where there was this guy like watching.
Oh,
it was
that's
like
so funny that you mentioned that, because I was just rereading that the other day and was thinking the same thing. Whatever happened to that guy?
Yeah, this is him. Like, so
Wow.
they he reappeared in the Rebirth special, which was by Jeff Johns.
Jeez.
And now they're bringing him here, and I think we're about to actually figure out in this very next arc what that guy's deal is.
Yeah, because he was watching him and he was like, "Oh," he said something like, this is, you can do better than this, Clark or Kal-El or something, right?"
Yeah, I'll check my issue numbers and I'll put the correct issue number in the show notes or in the comments. But yeah, I'm really curious about that. So that's got me going forward. And he intercepted Doomsday, so he has Doomsday there. And is he planning something else with Doomsday? So I'm definitely curious about the next arc. So, pretty good stuff. I've been pretty happy with it. It hasn't been like a masterpiece type of thing, but I've really enjoyed it, and I definitely want to see where it goes next.
Yeah, I'll probably keep reading, at least keep checking it on the Superman or Action Book, but I still want to see them do something a little more back to basics with Superman, like we said before, kind of like in the Batman run that Capullo and Snyder did, and really let the character grow a bit. And I think it'd be cool, because there's no need to rush in all the things from the Superman mythos. I think sometimes it's a little more appreciated if you make it a big deal that all of a sudden the Phantom Zone's back, or that later Doomsday is back, or another villain, because, it just kind of builds the suspense a little bit more for the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't quite go back to basics yet with this Superman, because he still has to get reacclimated into the world. And so both of the Superman titles, Action and Superman, have been dealing largely with his family, like with Jonathan and Lois, and how he's going to interact in this new world. So once he kind of figures that out and he is fully integrated into this world, then I would like to see it kind of back to basics. And figure out what's going on with this new Clark Kent too.
Well, yeah, they've got to do that first. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, all right, nice talking with you about it. We will see what's coming up next, and I'm really liking this new schedule where it's only 2 or 3 weeks to wait for the next issue, because I've been enjoying the stories, so it's nice that they come pretty frequently.
Yeah, that's good. I'm looking forward to some more Superman too. It's nice to see some decent books on the stand, so it's always a good thing.